Welcome back to the Digital Accessibility Podcast. If you're looking to learn more about the field of accessibility, how to implement it within your role or your company, or to get advice on where to start or see how others have navigated complex issues that you may find along the way, then you're in the right place. I'm honoured to be able to share these insightful chats with thought leaders, advocates, and practitioners of digital accessibility throughout this podcast, and I hope you'll find it a useful resource. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the chat. Today's guest is someone whose journey spans some of the biggest consultancy and tech organisations in the accessibility world. I'm joined by Chris Holloway, recently taken on the role of Head of Accessibility at Recite after years of delivering huge impact at PwC. Chris's experience covers everything from accessibility strategy and audits to digital tooling and technical innovation. We're going to dive into Chris's journey, the inside story on accessibility tooling, which some people will refer to as overlays, team building, reputation, intent, and so much more. So welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me, I think.
No, don't be worried.
Good.
It's all good. So I guess, as always, we'll just start at the beginning. So a couple of questions really, but what originally led you to specialize in accessibility, and then more recently, what encouraged you to sort of take the leap from a role working at a very, globally recognized brand, PricewaterhouseCoopers or PwC, to the head of accessibility at Recite Me?
Oh, it's a big question, isn't it? It's a really big question. So yeah, why did I get into the industry? I think that's the starting point. If I'm honest, like many people, it wasn't something that I left school to go and do. It's something that you kind of find yourself doing one day. For me, I just had a genuine interest in technology anyway. So from my perspective, always been really interested in kind of learning about how technology works, why we're using it. And then for me, it just happened to be, if I'm honest, in the right place at the right time to get the right technology in front of me, and I just had a really good, real interest in it. So how did I start? I was sat there working in a team where we looked after some of the software packages at PwC. So it was kind of how we bring things in, how we give software to staff. So for me, it was just kind of working out how I could get the screen reader working. And then more importantly, what is it that I've just fixed? Who's this for? Can I meet the person? And I kind of got introduced to one of the partners at the time who's using this software. And he just gave me a really good insight to kind of asking, why do we need this? And obviously that person had vision impairment at the time. And obviously that was going to help them go forwards. And I realized actually that there was technology sitting between somebody being able to do their job or potentially not, and being completely excluded from what we were doing. So that's kind of where I started. Then I kind of asked the question of like, well, what else is there? what else have we got in the firm that actually we're trying to do our best with? And it quickly, kind of got to that point where we had, screen readers, we had, different technologies for literacy support. We had different settings that were on your laptops. And then I realized after that, I was thinking, this is exactly where I want to be. I love doing this. And then I got this extra bit that I wasn't expecting, was technology and then people. So you had kind of, two things that I really enjoyed. I love talking to people and understanding how they work and what they're doing and how I can help them. And I realized actually really quickly that I had two interests that were like really well aligned. So I kind of moved into looking after the assistive technology in the firm. So I looked after all the licensing, any roadblockers, anything I could fix at the time to help people. So I kind of did that for a long while. And then obviously moved into kind of more around, learning about accessibility and actually really understanding, I get why we've got the technology now, but why is that technology now not working with that? What's the problem? So it felt like a little bit of a natural progression, because I kind of went from understanding why we're doing this to, okay, well, I need to get involved in how we now fix other things so that the technology is accessible and it actually works with it. So that was kind of my evolution into that. And it just went from there. It absolutely went from there. I kind of learnt more, wanted to get involved in more stuff, got involved with a lot of the communities, accessibility communities, which kind of, it just opens an eye up into everything that you can be involved in. And for me, it was that was what I wanted my career to be in. So it's been in that for just overall, it'll be like 11 years now. It's been amazing. I've seen a lot of progress in the tools and the technology that's around it. Why did I leave PwC? I think that's that's a question that I've been asked that loads, and I think, for me, what PwC is an absolutely fantastic place, with how it supports their staff and the technology they've got access to, and for me it was kind of like, great, we've now got that into a position where it's stable, it's doing what we need it to do, but for me it was like, kind of what's next. And for me, obviously, one of the things that I think the industry, the accessibility industry, suffers a little bit for is that we have an accessibility team, or you have individuals in your teams that are kind of part of that. The team can only ever get so big, because once it gets to that point where it's kind of, okay, we've got the accessibility team, you generally don't then have another accessibility team that sits next to it, or another. It tends to be kind of, you've got that hub and spoke effect. You've got that main area where you've got accessibility champions, your specialists in there. What does that do for people that are actually perhaps looking for progression? It means that if you've already got somebody potentially, as a lead or a head of or directorship or anything like that, it actually becomes really difficult then to kind of navigate away from that to go and do something else, to perhaps get promotion or seek progression. So that was kind of where I was looking at. I was kind of looking at, where could I go to where I could actually deliver some impact, really grow what we need to be doing in the industry, yet stay within the industry and stay with the people I knew, stay with your tribes. That's kind of what I've done. So I've stepped obviously into something that's completely different, but also something that now I'm kind of 4 to 5 months into it. I absolutely love it. And for me, it's just given me an opportunity to kind of move in, really look at our roadmaps, really understand where our strategy needs to go, but also layering on the things that I've known and I've trusted over the years, and that is that everything you do must be focused around people. It's a people first approach. Accessibility for me is it's solely about making sure that people are able to do and be the best that they can possibly be. So yeah, moving over to Recite Me, it's given me an opportunity to shape the focus a little bit, shape some of the strategy as kind of where we're going next, but also perhaps challenge some of the things that we might need to change or adjust, which I've absolutely loved doing. So yeah, it's also given me the opportunity to kind of stay in touch with a lot of the network that I had, including yourself, Joe. Last night we went out. But yeah, for me, it's just, that's what I love about the industry. I love that culture around it. Didn't want to lose that. So I think for me, moving across to Recite Me just has given me the option to kind of expand a little bit, but also make sure that I still get to do what I love doing. So yeah.
It does. I mean, it's the thing. I think when we look at, obviously recruiter head on, when I look at people that are specializing in accessibility, there are those sort of nooks and crannies almost. It's like, oh, okay, you're mostly on the audit side or testing, and then, oh, you're, creating, you're innovating and making technology. And then, like, I guess it's really familiar territory for you, because a lot of your stuff has been working on sort of internal tooling and the assistive technologies and things like that, which is, I guess, to put it really plainly, like sort of what Recite Me is and what they're, what they were created to do and to build is sort of technology that helps people, navigate the web and technology. So brilliant. And then, so recently as well, I know, so making immediate impact as you do. You recently grew your team. You made a new hire. And I believe you tapped into your own sort of network as well, that you say, obviously that you've managed to keep in touch with, to find the right person. So naturally, as a recruiter, I'm going to ask you, so what's your sort of approach to building teams and the importance of that community, and sort of, sorry for 4 questions in one, but what sort of skills in particular would you say matter for candidates in this space when they're trying to sort of break into the accessibility field?
So one thing I would say is I absolutely loved that recruitment process. It was so fun. You know, being able to kind of reach out to people and go, great, how is it that you work? You know, oh, we work slightly differently. So I love that approach, you know, and that's great. So for me, I can't take all the credit. So we've got an internal recruiter as well, Leslie, who is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so from her perspective, it was around kind of approaching that from an inclusive perspective, and you know, I went down that path as I came in to Recite as well. So really, really good path in. I think probably what I look for when I'm looking at adding people to the team or bringing people into your kind of bubble, you've really got to look after that. And one of the things that I was really keen on doing when I started was bringing people in that genuinely care about this stuff. You know, they've got a genuine passion for accessibility. They may have some lived experience as well. You know, that might be themselves, or it might be family or friends around them. So for me, I needed people that come into the team that really get it. You know, they're not coming in to kind of have to go back and learn that. So I think for me, there's certain things that you can bring staff into, and you can upskill them. You can do that. So things like WCAG, for example, great. You can bring somebody in. As long as they've got those kind of fundamentals, they've got the core values, they understand why they're here, they get the context around it. I don't know, they've got some disability confidence themselves. The other stuff can come along.
Yeah.
You know, learning about WCAG, yes, it'd be lovely if you had somebody that kind of understood that. Great, of course you would be looking for somebody. However, what I was really keen on is I didn't want people that are almost the WCAG dictionary. It's no good. It's no good for me, because we've got tools that can help with that stuff. We've got frameworks out there that can do that. Just because you know every single WCAG standard, it's fantastic if you do. But if you can do that, but then not have those people skills to connect in with clients that really genuinely need our help, and you just quote WCAG standards to them and you just don't understand why, for me, that feels like a complete backward step. One of the things I also wanted to do as well, and I don't know if this is something that generally goes across the board, is I actually brought my team in to help me with that. Brought people that are already in my team into those interviews to really ask the questions that they need help with. So rather than it be kind of me go through the interview process, or perhaps have somebody externally do that for me, and then go, oh, I've hired somebody, and there we go, they just get, you know, injected into your team, and that's it. That feels like a completely, what's the wrong approach for me. I wanted to make sure that we had somebody that came along that felt like they fitted in to start with, and they were we were ready to bring them in. They knew who we were. They were comfortable with us. We were really comfortable with them. And actually, do you know what? It luckily worked out that way. So we've got I've got a couple of team members now. So Abby and Avni. And what we were really focused on was actually bringing somebody in that, you know, fitted our core values as a firm, really understood what we were trying to do as a team, but also challenged us. I didn't want somebody else to come into the team that was going to just sit and go, yeah, it's great, Chris, let's do that. I wanted somebody. I wanted somebody to come into the team. I still want people in the future as well to come in and challenge that status quo and bring new ideas in, and perhaps ask the whys, you know, and perhaps bring their experience in with that as well. Because I think that's the only way we can do it. That's how we're going to get better. So, yeah, it's been. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, I can't take all the credit because I had Leslie helping me, but you know, it's something that I think if we're doing that wrong, and you're not asking those questions, and you're just bringing people in because you think that their CV looks good, I think it's the wrong approach. So, just to kind of caveat a little bit on that as well is I think it's really important how you how you bring people in terms of, you know, your interview process. So
Mm.
I've in the past, not in any of the companies that I've got roles with, which is fortunate, but I've been to interviews in the past where I've walked out and gone, I really don't want to work there. I don't.
Mm.
If I get the role, that's great. I don't want to work there because the way that I've been interviewed. So, you know, I was really, you know, when I went through the interview stage, I was kind of like, look, how can we make sure we're not putting people on the spot in an interview and expecting them to quote the WCAG to me, okay?
Mm.
But how are we also bringing somebody in that I give them the opportunity to really show me what they can do? So the approach was, you know, for us, we go in with kind of an informal discussion. Is this right for you? Is this right for us? Are we on the same path here? You know, do you understand what we're looking for? Is there anything else that you perhaps think that our role should do that we're not, that you'd love to discuss in a bit more depth? And then we move into, obviously, you know, kind of through that approach, it's kind of what's your next steps. So it's a kind of a more informal discussion. We start to talk about, you know, what our core values are, what the actual job will be doing.
Yeah.
And in that case, what we did do in two instances is we've adjusted that role slightly. We've worked out and we've understood that that person, you know, we've got this role, but actually they would be really good doing this as well, or perhaps not so good in that. So let's tailor the role. So, you know, we can tailor the role. And then I think it's really important as well. A lot of people doing kind of task-based activities and going, here we go, you've got this, and you need to join a call, and you need to walk through an accessibility audit with us. Do you know what? I would absolutely die if I had to do that on the call, if I'm honest with you, without any
Yeah.
prep or just being put on the spot. I could probably do it, but it wouldn't be fun. Would that put me in the best position to really show somebody what I can do? Absolutely not. It really wouldn't. So what I did was I set a task, and I strongly believe this is the right way to do it. I set a task. I just wanted 20 minutes of their time. 20 minutes of time. I built, with the help of a few colleagues, a website that just had accessibility issues on it. Okay, the really obvious ones, some of them not so much. And I just said, look, do you know what? I'm not going to set you any templates. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. What
Mm.
I want you to do is time box yourself. I don't want 2 hours of an audit on this. And I was very clear. I said, listen, in your own time, spend 20 minutes on this website. All I want you to do is I want you to write down what you can find in your way of doing it. And then I want you to come to me and just give me a priority order of what you would tackle first.
Yeah.
And why. Why would you do that? And I just think that was the best approach. I felt it gave somebody the opportunity to step back, work in their own environment, perhaps drag out some of the tools and, you know, crazy WCAG artwork they've got on the wall or whatever it is. And it just gave them the opportunity to go away and, you know, and kind of spend some time doing that. And I think the key to that is trust. What I trusted them to do at that point was only spend 20 minutes on it. I don't need more of your time. But also, if you've gone out to different resources or you've had some help from somebody else or you needed something, tell me about it. I want to know
Yeah.
about it. So that's what we did. So I got a couple of those back. One of them was Abby. Okay, so Abby in our team. But actually, it was kind of like, I can see what you're doing. That's great. I love what you're doing. Some of it didn't quite align with what we do. And actually, do you know what? Since that person has joined, we've actually adjusted some of the things that we would do to go, well, do you know what? That's a great way of doing it. That's why we're not doing that. Let's adjust
Yeah.
it. Let's make sure that works. Or, you know, there's certain bits that I've been really key on to go, well, do we really need to do that? Actually, let's not do as much of that. Let's think about it again. So yeah, for me, it's just giving people that approach. I don't want a cookie cut effect of just employing another person that's the same as the last one. I don't think
Sure.
that helps anybody.
Mm.
Um, but I think it's also really, really key to just really give people the opportunity to kind of shine. I think that approach also gave us the opportunity to have, make sure that the way that we were recruiting and bringing people into the firm It's really inclusive. It's really open. So, what we were doing throughout that process, and I was asking, up front was, listen, is there anything I can do to help you through this process? Are there any adjustments I can help make?
Yeah.
Do you need a bit more time to answer some of the questions? Great. If you do, that's fine. Tell me. It's not going to influence how the process goes, but what it does allow me to do is go, this person needs an extra half an hour. Let's not rush this interview. Let's add half an hour on the end. In fact, while we've done that, let's give everybody the opportunity to do that if they need to.
Yeah.
So I think that was the fair way of doing it. And I think, what we got out of it was real transparency, somebody that wanted to come into the firm, somebody that was happy to come in. And yeah, I really stand by it. I think that's kind of our approach. I'm going to do it again. So
Yeah, amazing. I think it's great points there as well. And so I wrote a few things down as well. So it was more around, obviously, Leslie, credit where it's due. That's brilliant. I'm pleased to hear that there's an excellent recruiter out there and supporting you doing that. When you mentioned about just having the fundamentals, and then it's actually being able to put that into practice. Like I do make a joke quite often about, if I'm speaking to a new client and they need help sourcing someone, and the first question, what do you need them to do? What knowledge do they need to have? And usually I make the joke of reciting WCAG 2.2 in its entirety. And obviously that's not, I mean, it's great, like you said, to have that recall, but without putting it into practice or being able to translate that to people that won't be aware of it, it's kind of a useless skill. Not useless, but you know what I mean. But no, brilliant. And then that interview process where you're upfront as the recruiting party to make sure people are comfortable, and you be the one to approach. Would you like any? Is there anything we can do to make you feel more comfortable, or any adjustments we can make? Because I do think that the onus should be on the hiring side. I think that you should be the one to approach that, because people will feel uncomfortable. They shouldn't, but they will feel uncomfortable about feeling like this is going to jeopardize my chances. They're going to think I need more time in day to day, but actually it's a really anxiety sort of driving scenario. Regardless of how comfortable you might be with the person that's interviewing you, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be anxious. And I mean, I'm a very anxious person anyway, so like interviews are a nightmare for me. So I'm very conscious of that, and then I try and project that when I'm speaking to my own candidates to say, it's fine, just let me know. And because I would feel the exact same way.
I totally agree. I mean, also what you got to think about is, what's the whole purpose of an interview? What's the purpose of the idea of an interview is so that you get a really good understanding of what that person is about, and they get understand what you're trying to do as well.
Yeah.
Why would I want somebody really stressed out and not giving me the best? It goes against everything that we'd want to do. So, for us as well, that's why I was kind of like looking at, how would this person work? I want to see how they're working, but do we do that under pressure in the day jobs? We absolutely don't. If you're going to do an audit, or you're going to go out and, go and give some consultancy to somebody, you would go not so much guarded and armed, but you'd go there prepared. You'd make sure that everything was set up so that, you could deliver the best to that client or the customer or whoever it is that you're working with. You wouldn't do that by just walking into a discussion where they're just going to fire millions of questions at you. You wouldn't. True. We have been in positions that happens. However, it's not your general day-to-day run of the mill, is it? You wouldn't necessarily walk into an interview every day. So for me, it's like, how do I see that person actually working? Can I get a glimpse of that before we go through the process of onboarding them? And I think that's what I got. So I was really pleased.
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
Shows good leadership as well. Rather than being a boss, you're a leader. You're someone that's actually enabling people. You're bringing them along, and that is quite evident in what you've said there as well. And I love the fair task, and that it's short. You're not taking too much of people's time, as long as you're getting an idea of what they're capable of as well. And absolutely, it's a two-way street. You want people to want to work with you, because otherwise you're going to have to go through the recruitment process again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think as well, as part of that is it's so important to keep people up to date. Let people let people know what's going on. Because I've been in positions before, not so much recent, but you apply for a role, you get really excited about it, you get emotional, you put that emotion into what you're trying to do. You go to an interview, you do everything you possibly do, and then you never get any updates. And that could be really upsetting for people that are in a position where they're trying to get into the industry, they're trying to do a role, they're really trying, but they're not getting anything back. So I for me as well, what I'm interested in doing is actually giving useful feedback to people that perhaps didn't quite make it, and that wasn't because they weren't good enough for the role. I only have one role, so for me as well, it's kind of, I need to have somebody that is the right person. I can't have 2 or 3 people because there isn't the roles for it. So it's what I tried to do through the process, and will continue to do this, is if anybody comes for an interview and they don't land the role, that might be an us problem. That's not a your problem. We need to be able to give you effective feedback to go, look, you did great. These are the reasons why. It might not be that some of that's going to be an easy conversation. But I think the industry needs to really look at what we're doing to make sure that people are given those skills back to go, well, next time it's great, but why don't we focus in your next interview, perhaps, why don't we focus more on you a little bit more? Not quoting McCag. So it's those sorts of things actually I think are really important as well, to give people feedback.
Definitely. 100%. And obviously it's tricky, and that's part of my job as a recruiter, so that's one of the things I'm always pushing for. And I understand that sometimes it's a time thing, or it's difficult, but I will always any of my candidates, I'll just push. And if it's a one-liner, it's not useful for anyone. It's almost, what's the point? Just kind of at least give me something that they can work with. But brilliant. Right, so I'm gonna move on to the next part, which brace yourself. Sorry, Chris. So it is around that the overlays chat, the reputation in the industry, but we had a really nice discussion last week about the intent and things. So I just wanted to see if you could share that with the listeners. So overlay tooling companies do have a bit of a rough time of it in the accessibility sector, sometimes seen as being a dirty word. I guess there's some past mistakes in marketing and potential over-promising, which isn't exclusive to accessibility tooling or overlay technology. But you've now seen Recite Me from the inside, so very curious to know what your honest perspective is on tool makers, the intention, and where that conversation needs to go.
It's do you know what? It's a big question, isn't it? There's a lot to unpack in that as well. One of the things that I've come to learn very, very quickly, and for me as well, I've been in the industry for a long time, and obviously part of that is kind of, you hear, the terminology of overlay, and for us, it was almost like you almost just stayed away, and it was kind of one of those things that you never really got involved in. What I have come to learn is, the differences between what we class as an overlay and what we class as assistive technology or a toolbar. Okay, and there is, again, I wasn't aware of this until I really looked into it, the differences between them. So we obviously Recite Me, from our perspective, and I truly, genuinely believe this, we are a toolbar, we're assistive technology. Okay, and the differences between them, again, this is, people coming into the industry, be quite challenging to really get your head around it. But also, we have had certain others in the industry that haven't been quite as transparent, and they are a very different position. I'm not going to go too much into that. However, assistive toolbars, when it goes onto a site, it doesn't change any of the coding. Okay, and it's really, really critical, and it's important that we recognize that. Okay, so obviously you get a lot of people saying, well, it's one line of coding. Yes, there's a one line of coding. However, that one line of coding doesn't interrupt anything that's on the page. Okay, so I would go to a normal website, nothing happens on the site until I actually either need to look at the toolbar, and I'd prompt it, and I'd load it up on the screen, and we see the toolbar sort of appear. if somebody's using assistive technologies at that point, okay, there's two things that we have from our perspective. One is that line of code doesn't interrupt anything on the page. Okay, so if you've got an assistive tech coming into that, they should and will be able to just carry on using their assistive tech, providing the website has been built in an inclusive and accessible way to start with. Okay, so if it hasn't been, i.e., they've not spent the right effort, the client or the customer, whoever it is, hasn't invested the time, their website isn't accessible, then putting assistive technology on that is always going to be an issue, and it's always going to be a barrier, and you're always going to have compatibility issues. Exactly the same applies for toolbar. Okay, so we're assistive technology. If you put our toolbar onto a website that hasn't been built inclusively, it's not accessible, you're not putting the right processes in, you're not looking after your customers and clients and improving the accessibility of your site, we're going to struggle with the toolbar, which is why I'm here. So kind of cover that in a second. When we're talking overlay territories, this is something that we don't class ourselves sitting in. We're looking at something that sits on your site and you give the option, you give your customers and clients no option.
Right.
They arrive on your site, they may be using assistive technologies, they may not be. If you've injected code into your website, sometimes in most cases, automatically you're using AI, and it manipulates the site, it makes the changes, your client might not even be aware of what's changed on their site. For me, that's where that overlay can do some good things. I think there's definitely merit and there's a place for it. For me, again, love technology. There's definitely a place for it, 100%. However, I think there's certain things that we shouldn't necessarily be doing, and for me, is applying automated fixes on the fly, and then not giving people the option to remove them. Feels like a backward step, because what you're doing effectively is saying you've already got an inaccessible website. Great, we're going to put some code on there that might fix everything, and then you're going to try and use your assistive tech on it, and it doesn't work. That's the approach that we're very much against. We wouldn't want to do that. So what we do is your toolbar sits on the site. It doesn't interact with anything on your site until you want it there. What we also do as well is, from our perspective, we are consistently and constantly checking and testing all of our internal products with assistive technologies. Okay, we're improving the way that we do that. Okay, so it's about rather than sort of that functional testing, are we really testing our toolbar, real people that would come onto your site and actually use that? So we are doing that, and we've started to make some huge changes in there in terms of can we make sure that it's keyboard friendly, like not just can we see if it will do it and can we manipulate the page to do it. No, how are we going to actually make it do it? Are there tools on there that potentially are kind of more obsolete now? They're not necessarily needed. Maybe some of the built-in stuff is going to do that, or perhaps we can do that slightly better in an easier way. Let's do that. We've also looked at bringing things into the toolbar. So again, separate to overlay toolbar, that actually adds real value in terms of you wouldn't get this on any platform. Okay, so one of the examples is we've just added not auto-generated BSL. Okay, very clear. We're not looking at AI automated generated BSL, but what we've actually got are clients now that have the toolbar on their site, and actually they can have a complete transcribed version of that page with a real person that's sat and gone through it, and actually that's on the toolbar. So actually you can have BSL interpretation right across certain pages that have been through that process. Well, that's assistive technology. That's something that's going to help somebody, but also raise some of that education piece around, you've got a toolbar here, why are we doing this stuff? So yeah, I think for me, I've learned so much, even just joining Recite Me and actually working out and kind of understanding what the differences were. I spent a long time really understanding what that looked like and why, but also kind of looking at the roadmap and what's coming up. And we've potentially got, and this is what we were talking about the other day, Joe, around a huge missed potential in the industry. So we've got if I was to give Recite as an example, I've got developers that are sat there at Recite Me. Their day job is to literally create accessible tools. That's it. That's what they do. They do that day in and day out. And what we're looking at across the industry at the moment is there's been a lot of redundancies across teams, accessibility focused teams. We've seen less budget allocation. We've seen people lose roles that they shouldn't have lost those roles, and firms not perhaps stepping back. We're in a very different position. I've got a team of people, their day job, like we said, is to create accessible technology. What they need, and what I can see, especially over the last 12 to 24 months, is there's a lot more focus on, we are doing the right thing, we're in the right place, but actually, do we have good disability confidence? Do we really understand that? If we're building this tool or these tools that we're doing, do we really understand why we're building it? Do we understand our target audience? So, we've done sessions recently more so with BSL, where we had the whole firm in to learn more about what BSL is. Obviously, I didn't come out as a specialist. For me, it was but it was important to go, well, actually, why have we put BSL on our toolbar? These are the people that have come in to help with that, and they kind of did some upskilling. We've looked at, IAAP membership. It's not there to look good, okay? It's there because what I want our staff to be able to do is feel comfortable with reaching out to people and really learning kind of the next step around how do we evolve, how do we make the toolbar better, how do we improve certain things, how do we listen to the communities and go, right, there's a gap on our toolbar, let's fix that, we can get it done.
Yeah.
Remembering, I've got a team of developers there that want to do this, they're passionate about it, I just need to know what people want. So yeah, I think for us, seems some massive leap forward, and we're going to continue that. That's something that we're going to carry on doing. And I think one of the things that I've seen is, going back to Overlay very quickly, is once you're kind of in that position where not so much your class as an overlay, but you're close enough to be that people don't understand what a toolbar is actually trying to do, there's no exit door. There is no way of going, well, actually, do you know what? For the new people coming into the industry, or perhaps people that have learned a little bit more about what the differences are and why we're doing this stuff, or do you know what? Actually, just want to come and be part of it. I would probably, my advice to people is, my door is always open. I've always been very transparent with that. I've been very open. I'm open. I'm genuinely open to discussions around what that looks like. I want people to come and talk to me about it if they're not sure, or perhaps they've got an interest in it. They want to come and see how it works. Come and talk to me. Open to have that discussion. So yeah, hopefully for me it just gives people a little bit of confidence that technology changes all the time. Okay. There's, without going into too much depth, we've also got to think that from a platform perspective. Okay, so from technology and having the operating systems, you've also got operating systems that have something that's very similar to a toolbar or an overlay that's actually built into the platform. Okay, so we've also got to look at that evolution of that people actually see that as a toolbar, or they see that as assistive tech. However, perhaps private firms that are quite not quite as large or not that size of enterprise actually have a very similar offering that's just as good, maybe even better, that they're just not getting the opportunity to kind of explore and go, look, come and talk to us, we'll fix it if there is a problem. If you need something or as an additional feature that you think is a great idea, let's have the discussion, let's put it on the board. So yeah, hopefully it gives people confidence. I'd love to have conversations with people if we want to. So
I love that. And it is one of those things. I think there's a misconception. I think that there's, like, again, it's funny because the conversation actually came up again last night. So we were out with some friends in the accessibility community, and loads of different conversations happening, which was amazing. And one of them one of the points that was raised was, marketing teams naturally, or sales teams, just really desperately want to say that something is 100%. So regardless, accessible, usable, whatever you want to call it, they just really want people to think this is going to solve your problem 100%. But there is no such thing. When it comes
I
to
think it's a very good point.
accessibility.
It's a very good point, because you know from our side as well. So what we've invested time in is actually spending. So I do this on a weekly basis. Okay, I spend time within all the groups that the sales team are in, and we are learning. We are vastly improving in terms of what we're doing. You know, and what I also have access to as well is past discussions that people have had. So I'm very keen in terms of we should never be overpromising. We should be really honest with pricing. We should be really transparent. But also as well, do you know what? There's also opportunities where, do you know what, that partnership just isn't the right fit. Yeah, so we may have clients that are coming towards us that want a quick fix. They're ready to throw perhaps a lot of money at something. They're ready to go, well, that's great, that's your problem, you go and fix it and come back to us, and we just want the golden stamp at the end of it. We don't want to partner with people like that. We don't want to. So for us as well, it's a very different position where actually you walk away from a deal or a client because actually we're not the right fit for you. Your core values, they don't align with what we're trying to do. And I think for me, that's something that I have seen done. I think it's really important that we do that, but also it's kind of making sure that we've got the right education into our sales teams. We're listening to feedback. Okay, we're really clear and transparent on what we can and can't do. Okay, but also I think part of that is what we were talking about last night, was around, if you've got a client coming to us that don't know what they want, meeting a sales team that don't know what they're selling, neither party at that point are likely to say that they don't know what they're doing, because they kind of want to be in that position where, like, they're leading this, they know what they want, of course they do. What happens is you end up with complete mush that comes out the back of it, because nobody really understands. Nobody understands what the client needed, what they really wanted, matched with something that that company or that organization can offer, which actually comes to something that is going to genuinely benefit both parties. And I think for me, I haven't seen that here. I think for us, I'm quite comfortable, very confident with how the sales team approach clients. They're respectful. There's sort of no force in terms of over compliance. We're not saying what I hate to kind of see other organizations is saying, come to us, we'll fix your EAA for you, you don't need to do it. No, if you're saying to clients or customers that we will fix your EAA compliance for you, then that's the wrong partner for you. In my opinion. If you're going to organizations that are saying, look, we will partner with you, we will work with you, we're going to give you the resources that we know we've tried and tested, we're going to match that with your expectations and look at your skill level, and we're going to help you get to that. We're going to work together as a collaboration. For me, that's the right way to go, and that's what the EAA should be doing. And obviously, when we're talking about all the others, ADA compliance, all the bits that we kind of see, what we shouldn't be using is those words to kind of confuse people and get people to kind of buy into products that they actually either don't need or isn't the match for them. So I think that's kind of the approach that I've seen. I'm really comfortable with how I think we do it here. I can't speak on behalf of others, because that's starts to them process. But for me, it's just been what I value is transparency, honesty, and actually just let's work together, let's collaborate on something and make sure that actually it's a good experience for everybody. Because if we're doing that, that person's likely to either want to come back and need more help, which is great, but actually they're more likely to maybe move to another organization and take that knowledge with them. Which is why I'm here. In the accessibility industry, why are we here? I think that's kind of the question, is that what I want to do is I want to upskill somebody that goes and makes the world just that little bit better, and then feels comfortable to go to another company, taking that knowledge with them and spread that with another 10 people that get it. And then those 10 people go out to, and it just means that actually, rather than focus on, budgets and money and things like that, we should be focusing on evolution of that knowledge, people being able to really recognize it and take that forward. So yeah, if we get to that, I think we're winning.
Yeah, 100%. Love it. And it's sorry, just very quickly on that point as well, it was that kind of risk by association almost as well, because if you're partnering with a company that would just buy your toolbar or whatever it is, your solution, and not really know what they're doing with it, it's going to make your tool look crap. Probably have to bleep that, but like, it's going to make it misrepresentation.
And again, it's about if we go into a website and it's awful, and do you know what? Some people are still at that point at the moment, which is absolutely fine. We've never heard of accessibility. Great. What we shouldn't be doing at that point is stringing them up and going, well, you didn't know about it, that's awful, you're an awful person. Right? What we should be doing is going, well, that's great, do you know about it? And if they say no, we should be going, right, let's bring them in, have the discussion of what it is. If they choose not to do anything with it, and 3 years down the line they still haven't decided that they're going to do anything with the website, I wouldn't want to partner with them. Why would anybody want their tools or any of their services or anything on a site that goes against what their core values are and their core beliefs? So, for me, what we do have, this is what I lead. Okay, so part of that is around the consultancy aspect. Okay, so yes, we have Toolbar. We've got other tools internally that can help with compliance and accessibility checking and automated approaches and all the magic stuff that we generally talk about. From my perspective, we're also looking at, well, that's great, but how do we test with real world testers? How do we bring manual testing into that discussion? How do we make our clients feel comfortable about that manual aspect of it? But then how do we then turn all of that into something that they can then actually use in their company to improve what they're doing? They're the sort of people I want to sort of partner with. And so far, all of the clients that I've worked with, that's the approach we've taken. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I think that is that takes it away from just being a product that you're selling people to actually a product that you do sell, but you truly believe in and you truly support as well. So we obviously have consultancy that kind of wraps around that to help. If we see a site that isn't accessible, what we wouldn't do is just go, well, there's the toolbar, thanks very much, we're not going to do anything else with it. We'd give them options. So it's around, look, your site could be improved. Here's some guidance. This is something that you can go do. Go and read this. Go and understand it a little bit more. If you need our help in a bit more depth, then come and find us. We're happy to go through that. So that's what happens. So when the toolbar goes on, it is wrapped with a huge amount of support around that, just to make sure that that person's okay. And what we don't do is kind of dump a toolbar onto a website and then never look back at it. It's kind of the toolbar goes on and it gets continually monitored with customer success managers that help make sure that it's working as it should do. But also, again, it goes back down to if we see that the client isn't doing what we believe in, then from our perspective, that relationship starts to die out or it ends. So I think that's a really important part of if we've got overlay toolbar providers, don't sell and run. It's not about that. It's about looking at how you can work with somebody to make it better for them, but then continually monitor and support that going forwards. I think that's what we need to get better at. In the industry.
Definitely. 100%. I think it is one of those things, and that's a misconception that is there. I think people are you're taking the human element, you're taking the manual aspects and removing people from the process by utilizing a tool, but actually having that hand in hand is probably the best approach, because we need to make the most of innovation and technology that we've got these days to make our lives easier. We do that with everything. So no, I love that. But you did mention a bit about the coaching and consultancy side of things as well. So I'm going to just sort of skip ahead to another question around that. So I see myself as quite a visual vocational learner. So one thing I love about your work and what I've seen online is the content that you share publicly on LinkedIn, is where I see it anyway. And it just sort of includes loads of like tidbits of advice and practical sort of guides on accessibility auditing or testing, and how to interpret complex guidelines and demystifying sort of regulations and things like that. So could you share here, I guess, some go-to methods or like the sort of standard things that you'd be like, this is what people need to be doing?
Yeah. I think, if I'm honest with you, a lot of it come from in terms of my journey into accessibility. What I quickly got overwhelmed with just how complicated people can make accessibility. And that goes back to what we said earlier. If somebody doesn't really truly understand the context, and they're not disability confident, they don't understand why we're doing this stuff, then those are the wrong type of people to then be writing guidance about it.
Sure.
And when you're starting out in this, you don't know who those people are.
Yeah.
So you'll read whatever you can possibly get your hands on to go. And actually, what I found really quickly was, I was getting super overwhelmed with just stuff coming out my ears, thinking, how am I going to know all of this stuff? But then also I found like just definitions were overly complicated, like really complicated. And one of them that I always recommend to people when I talk about WCAG, my opening line is, don't go diving in head first. Don't do it. You don't need to do that to yourself. What I would strongly suggest is, approaching it from understand the context first, go and learn a bit about disability and lived experience, and, then go and try and work out what you're going to do next with it. So that's what I wanted to try and do with my LinkedIn. I wanted to bring in bite-sized kind of learning. I wanted learning that somebody could go, whether they're on the bus or the tube. I don't want to have to sit there and read for 20 minutes to try and get the point. I just want to go, do you know what? If you can't get this within 20 seconds, that's not your fault. That's my fault for not writing it clear enough. And that's kind of what I've always done. So for me, it's around, how do I make sure that if I'm putting stuff out there, A, it's accurate, it needs to be accurate. B, I'm not overcomplicating it. And 3, if my 12-year-old son doesn't understand it, then I need to go back and write it again.
Yeah.
And he loves it when I give him stuff and go, you can read this. You can tell what it is.
Start marking your work.
Yeah, so he kind of sits and goes, what's that? So actually, there's certain things that I do put in there sometimes. So a good example was, I put into something the other day, cognitive functionality or cognitive function. And those that are in the industry probably recognize it, and that's great. However, my son was like, I don't get what that is. Can you, right, if you don't get what it is in this, that's not your fault. Let me go back and reword that. So actually that was a kind of a moment of me to go, well, yeah, let's take a step back. So, for me, I think LinkedIn is an amazing platform. I've used it for a couple of different reasons. One is through recruitment. Yeah. So that's kind of where I even spotted my role, which is great. Bite-sized learning. But what I've also found with LinkedIn as well, and this is like kind of a mega tip that I found before, was actually, yes, that's a brand, that's your personal brand out in the industry to help you with that stuff. But also, you can get into so many people's pockets really quickly and really easily if you're really consistent and you could be trusted, if you're the right person for that. And what I found was actually navigating big organizations where you've got a lot of internal sort of stoppers, or I don't know, you're looking at specific campaigns over a certain month, and actually you're trying to deliver something that is more in the moment and now. Sometimes what I found with accessibility champions and advocacy networks is sometimes your internal comms platform doesn't quite align with the speed and pace that you need. But then you realize that most of the people that you're going to talk to internally are on LinkedIn as well. So connect with them all. This is what I did. And this is, something that I've also had some really good feedback from people that have done this is I've connected with other people that are in my organization. And as long as I'm really careful with what I put out there and I respect and trust, the internal aspects of what the organizations I'm working at the moment are about. So I'm not going to give client names out. I'm not going to go and give industry secrets out. Never going to slate the company that, I might be working with over there. Never going to do that. Keep it positive. And what I found is actually, I can actually reach a lot of the employees and staff quicker through LinkedIn than I can by my internal comms platform. And actually that's for me, especially if you're looking at growing your champions networks and your advocacy in the firm, is that was a really quick and easy way just to get a message out to people and go, look, next time you send that email, don't say, please see response below in blue, because obviously from our perspective, so just that kind of learning. So why are you doing that? It's because actually you put blue text on there, and actually someone with a color vision deficiency or somebody that's using a screen reader, it's never going to announce that it's blue to them and they can't see it. So actually it makes it difficult to see what the comment you've replied back. So for me it's like, there's a tip, put it out on LinkedIn, make sure it's really clear and it can be understood in 10 seconds or less, and then push that out. And actually what you find is that gets into your staff's pocket usually quicker than through your internal route.
No, it's great. That's brilliant. And I think sometimes if people, they might even be perusing LinkedIn for other reasons. They might be a bit disgruntled in their job, and then they're sort of looking at what's out there, but then they see something like that and there's someone else in the company that cares about accessibility and is trying to do the right thing. If that's where their values are, then it might sway them to go, actually, I'm going to reach out to you internally now and build that. It's brilliant. I think that's a great way to build those networks.
It starts in somebody walking up to you and going, oh, I've seen that thing you wrote on LinkedIn. And the next question for me is like, what thing was that? Because obviously, but actually it goes back to like, do you know what? I never would have perhaps connected with that person if they hadn't have gone through their LinkedIn. This is the most important thing, in their own time. So you've got to think comms usually go out in work's time. Internal comms go out work's time usually, and you read it in work's time. LinkedIn, social media platforms go out in their time. So actually they'll be laying in bed at 10 o'clock at night, or, on the tube or doing something or whatever it is. And you miraculously pop up on their feed in their time when they've got time to read it. And you get much more impact. So it's kind of, it made sense to do it. I don't do it for myself. I really don't. I genuinely enjoy getting people to understand accessibility a little bit more, and then seeing the questions come back. So I learn from it as well. So that's kind of the benefit I get, is that I get an insight to what people are thinking. So I can go, well, actually, let's improve what I'm doing. Do that. So
I guess it invites a bit of a response as well, because I mean, some of the things that you've shared, to me now, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Covering your screen if you're going to start using a screen reader to test if it works, and if you can navigate the site or whatever it might be. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, of course you'd do that. But without seeing that, it didn't really. I was like, well, how would you just close your eyes, but you're tempted to peek? Like, do you know what I mean? It's
So that post you're talking about, Joe. I've in the past I've spent an hour to 2 hours crafting a post and going, this is going to be the one that's going to get into a lot of people, and people are going to get benefit out of this. And you kind of push the boat out and you think, right, okay, nothing happens. And you go, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't quite right. That post, I wrote that. I was in a hotel room. I'd gone up to Newcastle to kind of meet the Recite Me team. I was in a hotel, and I just thought, I just popped that out. It took me 5 minutes to write that post. 5 minutes to write the post. I took the picture genuinely. So people who ask me, do you actually do it? I genuinely do that. at home. It's something that I do. Something I do tell clients to do, and it's the process. I've not made that up. I put it out. That post alone, we were. I think the last time I looked, that was going up to 300,000 people had seen that.
Wow. Oh my God.
And you would never. Yes, it's for us. When we're talking about spending budget and looking at money, and going, well, I haven't got investment budget on that. I'm genuinely, and there's a lot of people out there that can do the same thing, and there's a lot of people out there that I follow. That's the level of impact you can have from sharing your knowledge, of being really open and transparent, and just spending a little bit of time thinking about how can other people get the best out of this post. And for me, that was kind of, if I'm honest, it took me out at the knees a little bit, because I was a bit like, that took me literally 5 minutes, but the amount of impact you can have off of those types of posts can have a massive impact. So I think for me, it's something that that's where I get the benefit, and that's where I get kind of the kick out of doing it, is when I can see people going, light bulb moment, Chris, got it, I'm going to share that with my team. And that's why I do it.
Awesome. So, I mean, hopefully you'll get some marketing budget given your way now, because of all of that you've been able to do just from your LinkedIn posting. Who knows? I mean, it's only 4 or 5 months in, but I'm already asking Recite Me to give you a raise.
Oh, no. No, I mean, from our perspective as well, is, I love the way that our social media, our team, our marketing team as well, their approach as well has just been really refreshing from what I've seen. So coming in and having those conversations with the the marketing team, and going, well, what is it? How are we working? And some of the things that I've seen them do, and some of the sort of posts that I've seen them write, are brilliant, really, really brilliant. And it's kind of like, why are we not getting this out further? And it goes back down to kind of that reach into the market, and going, well, actually, we want to be in that position where we can really help people. And we've got really good, talented people that are writing some amazing stuff, that are ready to listen, get them involved. So I think probably from a marketing perspective, if you've got other organizations that are in the same position, get them involved. So I've got marketing team involved in IAP membership. I've got them looking at how can we make our comms even more inclusive than they are. How are we challenging that? How are we, re-platforming things? Are we sending too many emails out that are confusing people? Are we sending not enough, that don't give enough context? That sort of stuff. So I think, it's really important to kind of look at the social media as being a very small part of that. It's not the only part, but also looking at how your marketing teams are actually being, how they can be aligned to your recruitment process. How can they be aligned to your procurement process? What are they doing to help with making sure that platforms internal are inclusive for your leadership to use? So it's all those things that stitch together. So I think marketing team is hugely important in your organizations. I think we need to focus on it. So
influential, definitely, to success, for sure. Awesome. Right. So I guess, so kind of final question before final thoughts, because I know I could talk to you all day long, but I know we've both got other things to do. As someone that I would say is quite unfamiliar with the offerings of Recite Me, are there any sort of plans to go beyond? This is an assumption. I believe that the toolbar and the products that are offered are mostly around web sort of platforms or websites and things. But is there a mobile version of Recite Me, or is there plans to go into that space, or VR or AR and all that?
That's a good question. So I think probably the easiest answer at the moment, because obviously some of it we're kind of working on, is watch the space. Really watch the space, because we are in a position where we know toolbars very well. That's what we've done for so long. We're really good at it. And those other platforms around consultancy, what are we doing to improve that? Well, there's new tools coming in daily. We're not talking months and years, we're talking features that are coming in daily. We've got teams there that are running sprints with new stuff coming in, and what we're really keen on doing is being really close to our customers, our clients, and really listening to kind of what the hurdles they're having, and not saying, well, that's great, we'll just put it at the back of it's on the backlog. We're actually going, well, okay, invite a client in. What do we need to do? What are we doing really well for you? What would you like to see better? So I think probably in that innovation space, we are innovating every day. You know, and I think what I particularly like here is we're all empowered to do that. Okay, so we don't have one entry route in terms of, you know, one person is the person that dictates everything that happens in the toolbar. We've also got product managers, and you know, they are epic, really, really amazing what they do. What I particularly like about our product managers is actually they're listening to the whole firm. They're not just listening to those that are in the team, and even just our clients, to listen to everybody. So we've got new things going into the toolbar all the time. Most of those will come from kind of discussions that perhaps our sales team have had, or I've put some sort of implementation bits that I want sort of, you know, tweaked in there, which has gone in. So yeah, I think from that innovation piece, we are developing. There are other things that we've got on our roadmap as well, just to kind of focus on that. And I think probably AI isn't the only way. I think that's kind of, you know, what we've learned as well is there's a lot of, we're going to every discussion is AI all the time. And, you know, from my perspective, absolutely we should be doing that, but it shouldn't be doing everything all the time. So, you know, some of the other aspects we're looking at is, well, that's great, but how do we bring manual accessibility testing into that? But actually, we're not automating all of it, but using AI to help with that.
Yeah.
You know, and how do we then bring that to life? So, yeah, we've got tools hopefully that we're going to, you know, we're looking at to kind of bridge some of those gaps as well. And yeah, I think going back to kind of the ARs and the VRs, so you know, augmented reality, virtual reality, I think they've got a place. Obviously, there's at the moment kind of industry standards are kind of not up to the level that says that you're going to be compliant against something or not. So I think there's gaps there. So mobile apps are another example of that. So we've got mobile apps, we've got AR, VR, kiosk potentially as well, some of those areas. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done around that. And I think, yeah, that's kind of where I've seen kind of, you know, I've seen a lot of innovation coming in, but I do think, you know, focusing on web development at the moment is, you know, I think a priority. And the reason why I'm saying that is because that's where it's easiest to give up skilling at the moment. And that's what we're trying to do as an industry. So I think, you know, yes, we should be looking at AR and VR. But I do think, you know, really understanding those fundamentals from a web accessibility perspective, I think is more important at the moment, just so that people get it. Joe, in 2-3 years' time, you know, we may have a different level of recognition and understanding across the industry, and it might be that actually, well, the focus is on then AR and VR fully, you know, or those platforms. I think also a gap is around, you know, we focus very heavily on the accessibility team doing accessibility compliance training or accessibility compliant auditing standalone. I think what we're not focusing on, and this is what we, you know, I'm looking at potentially in the future, is to go, well, that's great, but how do we like focus on the whole life cycle? How do we stitch everybody together in a way that everybody gets it and they all get the support that they need? So I think in terms of less around emerging technology and more around how do we make sure that what we've done at the moment, we're actually connecting the dots up. So I think that's an important bit. I think the main thing that I want to emphasize on this as well, and I've had so many fantastic discussions. I had discussions last night with people at you know, at the group, is around collaboration. We must be collaborating. If we're working, I think if we've got organizations that are specifically focused on accessibility and they're working independently solely on their own, we've got a problem. So, you know, from my perspective, accessibility is about giving people the most options that they can possibly get out of the best offering. You can't do that on your own. You cannot do that on your own. You need to be able to collaborate and have partnerships with other organizations to really understand how we're going to make this work for everybody. And that, I think that's where, you know, from my perspective, I absolutely love to speak to people that are kind of in that space. I've already had good conversations with people that perhaps even watching this. Hi, I'm talking to you, which is great. But for us, it's about, do you know what? Like, we've got that shared pool. We've got people there. I've got people in my team that can help with this stuff in terms of development. We've got an amazing founder as well, Ross. The company was Recite Me was started from his lived experience in terms of he's dyslexic. There was a massive gap in the market in terms of he had nothing to support himself from a dyslexic perspective going through college and university. And it was kind of like, well, let's do something about it. So the Recite Me toolbar has actually started from collaboration.
Yeah.
It's come from collaboration. And that's where we want to still be. We still want to be collaborating with partners and just making sure that actually what we're doing is delivering the best user experience, but also the best emotional experience to everybody that uses it. So I think that's what we're about. I love that bit. I love that about what Recite Me does. And I'm starting to really fall in love with some of the other bits that we're really doing internally as well now. I think for me, it's just, I just want those open discussions with people to kind of go, look, we're ready to come and talk to you. We'd love to come along and have those discussions with you. We just need to know kind of what people need and why we're doing things, and we can do that. So I think, from my perspective, that's the open invitation out.
So, amazing. I think it is. It's like you can really hear it in what you've said today, and obviously I've been doing a bit of research into Recite Me anyway before we had this chat, and I do honestly believe that the head and the heart of the company is entirely in the right place, and why not? It's literally a company built for accessibility tooling. Like it's literally for that. It's dedicated to it. So when you talk about collaborating and partnering and things as well, I just thought, I'm sure there's going to be innovation that's happening at Recite Me that could be used by operating systems, I guess, because there's a lot of, I assume that with mobile apps, what makes them accessible or is assisting are sort of built-in features within our mobiles that can help with accessibility features, which would technically be a Recite Me toolbar maybe. So maybe there's innovation on the website that Recite Me have built that Apple, Google, the sort of operating system creators and developers out there could utilize, and there might be elements that could be sort of fed in.
I think also one of the things that I found, so this was from past experience in other roles, is you've got the likes of platform developers. Okay, they've absolutely, I can see the investment coming in from those platform developers to really focus on this. I mean, we've obviously there's been a couple of bumpy moments recently with Liquid and stuff. Things like, however, the tools are really quite good on those devices or those platforms and then operating systems, which is great. The problem comes when actually they move away to something new and they change the offering to benefit the wider sort of community. So it's great. So they bring a new feature in, but they discontinue something else that actually there's a huge audience that's still using that and still need to use it. But they're not given then the option to go, well, I don't really want the new thing. I want that. I've worked on this for the last 10 years and now it's not there. What do I now do? So, I think that's where the importance of, the assistive and the toolbars and accessibility companies, generally people that are building these tools, that's where we are absolutely needed. And the reason for that is because the toolbar, that's still going to be there potentially when an operating system changes. It's still going to be the same toolbar or very similar, or perhaps tweakable, customizable by you to still be there next week when perhaps some of the operating system changes.
That familiarity just is needed, isn't it? I think for anyone, regardless of ability or whatever it might be, but having that familiar sort of friend or helping hand.
Have you had that, Joe? So you've used the same button for the last 5 years, all right? And you go, fab, this is awesome. I know what I'm doing. It's all programmed in. You might have, I don't know, Alexa skills assigned to, or Siri skills, or whatever you've got, you might have so much that's relying on. You may have switch control or assistive technologies that are relying on that button being there, which is an operating system platform thing that's been put, and you come in next week and it's gone.
Yeah.
Or it's moved, or it's changed to something else, or it's been put in another menu, and you take that option, or there's no option.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's around that's where, especially when I was supporting the assistive technology angle of it, is you cannot go changing things overnight without talking to people and going, do you know this is coming?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I've seen assistive technology be really, really crucial in that journey, is that I want you to be able to come into work tomorrow and that piece of software is still there, ready for you when you need to use it, and it's not moved, or you've not had to take the next update and you're stuck with it. And I think that's kind of what I've always based on. That's why I think assistive technology, we should be using platform level, and it's great, and that opens the doors to everybody having access to something that they can work with. But I think we can't move too far away from having dedicated accessibility testing, dedicated assistive technologies, adaptive technologies, because we need it to be really, really stable and be there when someone needs it the most. So yeah, I think that's kind of my angle on it.
Yeah, otherwise it can be a bit bullish, I suppose, as well, can't it? It's just like, no, we've decided what's best for you. But yeah, so I guess, so before we wrap up and I'll let you get back to your day, is there anything that you're particularly excited about in the industry at the moment? Is there a new project or any ideas, or is there a specific change you want to see in the next year?
So I think you've got a lot of regulatory change. Okay, I'm not going to go too much down that route. However, I think what I've enjoyed seeing is a different flavour of discussion. So for example, the last 5 to 6 years has been very focused on champions networks and an independent accessibility team, and that's great. We should be doing that. I think what I've particularly liked seeing, I'd say definitely over the last 24 months and going into the future, you said about what I like to see coming up. I love it when you can go into an organization and their first call, they've got the marketing team on there, they've got the sales team on there, they've got their procurement team on there, they've got a developer on there, they've got UX team on there. You've got everybody in that company all on the same call talking about accessibility, all ready to take ownership or responsibility to want to learn more about it. That's where I think I'd like to get to, and that's what I'd like to see next is people feeling really comfortable about knowing why accessibility impacts their job role and what it is that they do. I don't necessarily think that, in fact, I know that we don't need everybody to have the word accessibility in their job title. For me, it's slightly different. If you're an accessibility team, get that. Accessibility doesn't need to be your job title. It should be in your job role to be inclusive and accessible to everybody. You should be proud of what you're doing enough to be able to show your friends and family that you've built something for everybody. And I think for me, what I'd like to see the next couple of years about, especially with the regulatory changes like EAA and the ADA compliance, I'd like to see people feel comfortable to go, right, I'm ready to rock up and let's get on with it. Let's do this. So I think that's kind of but where I'd like to see it, and I think that can be helped with not having AI come in and fix the world for you, but I think from what I can see in the future is AI coming in to help bridge those gaps between the teams. So it is different language. Your comms team's language is going to be very different to developer team's language, isn't it? I'd like to see AI come along and perhaps help with bridging some of that gap in the middle, and just making sure that it's actually fitting with both sides. And I think that's where I'd like to see it go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good usage for AI as well. Like you say, they're large language models, aren't they? So it is technically what their fundamental use is. So it should be to translate almost between teams and different ways of thinking. Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I've had tons of your time. I'm so honoured, and I just look forward to us talking more moving forward, and seeing you at a few more events. I think, are you going to be at TechShare Pro this year?
I am. Yeah. So
Amazing.
actually, going back to what we said, some of the changes. So this year, as an example, Recite Me, I'm going to be there in person, so I look forward to seeing everybody. But actually, what we've got is we've got our whole company all signing in, logging into the online version as well. So
Oh, great.
they'll all be on the online event and kind of looking to. And the reason why we've done this is because I want them to all learn more in terms of what they can take away to go and involve and improve their roles, improve the products we're doing. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to TechShare Pro. Are you
Awesome.
there, Joe? I think that's the
I
question.
am. I am.
Fab.
Yeah. I've managed to get myself a ticket for all of it, so very, very much looking forward to it. So I'm sure we'll meet up for a non-alcoholic beer at some point.
Fantastic. Good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again, Chris. And yeah, thanks for everyone listening.